everyone and welcome along. So hiding behind there is the letter T and it is tulips. What a classic. It couldn't be anything else in my opinion. We've got some beautiful sort of golden tones here. We don't have a huge amount of yellow in the alphabet. We've got some daffodils up top, but lovely to see some yellow back again. So grab your paints and let's get started. T for tulip. Well, that's a classic, isn't it? So let's have a few tulips, I think. So they do tend to droop if you're not careful. Let's have one there like that. Okay, so for a tulip, it can be handy to draw your little sort of horseshoe, just so you know the general direction of growth. And we're going to do a yellow tulip because we haven't done anything yellow for a little while, but I want it to be a lovely sort of buttery yellow. So I've taken lemon yellow and buff titanium, and that's just made a really nice creamy colour. And I'll take some Hansa yellow medium as well. And I'm expecting to paint with some Quin Gold too, but let's just begin. Well, let's first begin by rolling our eraser over the pencil just to minimise it. And here I have my 2/10 brush, and I'm going to start off by just sort of filling up the horseshoe shape. And sort of leaving the top kind of a bit raw in terms I'm not sort of neatening off any edges at the top. And then I think, there we go. And whilst that's just drying, just add a few shapes now. The thing with tulips is that you get so many different varieties of tulips. Some follow this very tight horseshoe shape. Others have a little bit more sort of roundness, so you might get a petal just coming off the side a bit more like that. But that's a really nice starting point, and we'll just let those settle in. And then large brush, large brush. The other thing I find, if you use a small brush to mix colours like that, you're going to get tons of tiny repetitive movements that could lead to things like problems with your wrist, like repetitive strain injury or carpal tunnel syndrome. So that's another reason why you should always be mixing your colours with larger brushes. And that's something I've learnt from personal experience. So here we go. Here's a little mixture of sap green, green gold. There's quite a lot of green gold in that mix. And with my 4/10 brush, I can paint a nice sort of quite broad stem, a smooth, continual stem that goes right in to the base of the flower. And now maybe a tiny bit more green, sap green in there. I'm going to take I've got my 2/10 brush, that should do okay. I'm going to squash it down to make a lovely leaf, and so these leaves sort of twist and wrap around the stems. I think we're going to leave it at that, otherwise it gets a bit over the top. Now we can go back to our tulip flowers, and I was talking about the Quin Gold. They will have just settled in a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a darker colour to actually create a sense of the sort of petals on the other side, on the back of the flower, meaning I'm creating a sort of interior by using that darker colour. Which I think is quite clever. And then I'll just mix some of that in to my main tulip colour, and I will just get a little bit in there in the base. And I need to think about where my petals, do they need defining a little bit like that? And then I'll just soften it with a little bit of water, just a clean wet brush. And that looks great. And now I'm going to take some concentrated sap green and use it to create a lovely bit of sort of depth and definition on the tulips themselves. And you do get some sort of faint ridges on the leaves, so I'll just smooth those in a little bit. And there we go, they look absolutely lovely. And once they're dry, I'm going to paint buff titanium on the tea. And there we have the tulip looking very golden with the buff titanium background. I love that. I'm really pleased with that one. So I hope you enjoyed that too. Of course, we have painted the tulip in our miniature flower painting series. So there's another option there with different colorways. But I'm hoping that the more you paint in miniature, the more you see that just with a few simple brush strokes with these little brushes, you can create all sorts of petals and leaves and stems really quite simply, and so you just build up this knowledge as you go. But thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps the channel and helps spread the word about the floral alphabet and all our other watercolour tutorials that you can access for free. So I will see you next time for the letter U.